Hi friends, welcome to the Plain Fun RC channel. I'm your host, Saul, and we're continuing our build of the experimental aircraft models Velocity XL. Let's talk about what we're doing right now. So we're shifting our focus, once again, as mentioned previously, to the inside of the fuselage, and we're focusing on the installation of the battery trays. Let's talk about the trays first. The trays I purchased from F3AUnlimited.com. You can also get them from GatorRC.com. They sell a couple different trays. Here's two of them. First, they do sell a 10S tray, which you can see here, and that includes the tray and also the carbon fiber rods and the straps themselves, and also these are fuselage reinforcers. They also sell a tray that handles up to a 6S, and I've got two of them because we're going to be running a total of an 8S battery, which is two 4S batteries in series. So we're going to be using two of these trays. I'm going to show you how the configuration is going to be inside the fuselage. So what we're going to do, we're going to put one tray here and the other tray directly beside it with a little space in between, as you can see. Now, the way we would determine the holes, because keep in mind the carbon fiber rods pass through this laser cut piece you see on the bottom with the holes. So the way we would determine the proper spacing and where they need to be placed is we simply just took the piece that glues onto the bottom of the tray itself, the battery tray. We went ahead and we placed it on the fuselage like so. And we put it up against, it's a little hard to see. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. We put it up against the actual former. You can see right where my thumb is located. And that gave us the proper placement and allowed me to go ahead and determine where the holes need to be drilled. So we've got that in place. Now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to pass our carbon fiber rods through both trays to check our placement. More to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, you can see we've got a dry fit of how the battery trays will sit, and it's perfect. It's exactly how I want. Now, if you ever have to put two trays side by side, let me encourage you to provide some space. The reason being is because when you go and try to put the Velcro straps on, it can be a little difficult because they want to stick to each other, and I learned that from that wonderful Long Easy. If you look back on the video, the build video, you see I have them very close together, and I learned very quickly that's a bad idea. So space them apart. What we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and get our fuselage reinforcers in place, which are these little things that come with the battery tray, and that helps to provide support with where the carbon fiber inserts into the sides of the fuselage. All right, friends, more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, you can see we have our battery trays installed, and you can see on the left over there where it says that little piece there, it says top, there's our fuselage reinforcement that comes with the actual battery tray. They're just epoxied in place. You want to sand them a little bit so you can angle them. Notice how they are at an angle because the fuselage is at an angle, so you need to sand them a little bit. What I didn't do is I did not glue the trays in place. You don't need to, because they are held in place just by sheer force of the actual rods passing through, so they'll be fine. We went ahead. You're going to want to make sure you epoxy in place your Velcro, and do make sure you put your straps on before you actually go through and insert the trays. Now, notice how the straps are in the middle, the actual loop portion there, if you will. That's important because you want to make sure that not only are they in the middle, but there's space between the trays, because you'll find that if you put the trays close together, every time you try to strap in a battery, it's going to be somewhat difficult because the Velcro on this side is going to want to get attached to the Velcro on that side with regards to the straps. Now, in the back here, what we did is we went ahead, we also put in a little piece, as you can see right there, that will be used to hold in the AS3X receiver. Now, what I should have done in hindsight was I should have taken this piece here is what you would normally have the throttle servo here, and then you would have the fuel tank here. Well, obviously, we're not going to need either because we're doing electric. I should have actually gone through and just taken, before glued this in, trace this piece, cut it out, and I could have gone ahead and just maybe done something a little different, like a couple slots to help mount the receiver. That way I wouldn't have needed this. So just food for thought. So if you're fortunate enough to find this plane and you're building it, just something to keep in mind. I would just retrace it, recut it, and then tailor it to your configuration. All right, let's go ahead, shift our focus to the actual cowling itself. What we're going to be doing here is we have this wonderful cooling piece. And the cooling piece can either go on the bottom or on the side. Now, if you're the type that is not doing electric and you are going to do a nitro or gas engine, more than likely you're probably going to have it sitting in a longitudinal fashion this way, okay, or latitude, excuse me. Sorry, latitude this way. I forgot latitude is this way. Latitude fashion. And in that case, you would want to go ahead and take this little piece and put it on the side. And that'll help draw more air in to help cool the actual motor. But since we're doing a brushless motor and the ESC is going to fit here on the bottom, okay, attached to these pieces, we want to make sure that the air coming in is able to cool the ESC. Now, the nice thing about Castle Creation is that if you do not want to put the ESC back here, you do have the ability to actually put it on the tray. And I have seen another one that was electric where they did go ahead and put it on the tray. And Castle Creation does sell a high-speed fan that will attach onto this particular ESC that we're going to be using that will allow you to go ahead and put it inside the fuselage and provide it with adequate cooling. You just have to make sure there's at least some air coming into the fuselage so that way the fan has some air to draw and cool the ESC. But because we're going to be putting it back on the firewall area, we're going to go ahead, we're going to take our scoop that it comes with here, and you can see the scoop. Let me turn it over and see what it looks like. It's just an ABS plastic, nothing fancy. We're going to take the scoop, we're going to trim it, we're going to go ahead, we're going to wind up mounting it onto the bottom of the fuselage. Now, of course, it'll face the other way. It'll be facing that way. Mount it to the bottom of the fuselage, and that'll help draw, and then we're going to cut a slot out here on the bottom of the cowling, and that'll draw in some additional air to help keep the motor and the ESC cool. All right, friends, let's get started. More to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, let's talk about what you're seeing here. So we've taken our air scoop, we've trimmed the flange, so we have about 1/4 of an inch going all the way around, and that gives us the ability to mount this in one of two ways. One of the ways is to go ahead and to remove the excess you see in here in the center of the actual cowling that I've outlined, and then mounting it on the exterior, whereby we just simply go ahead and attach it, glue it in place, maybe put a couple servo screws around the outside to go ahead, or button head screws to help hold it in place. The other way that you could potentially mount this is that once you remove the excess here, you could just go ahead and just pass this through on the inside so you don't see the flange, so the only thing you see sticking out is the actual scoop itself. Either way will work fine. The most important thing is just making sure that you're getting adequate cooling to the ESC and the motor. All right, we're going to go ahead. Let's remove our excess here in the center, and more to come. All right, friends, as you can see, we've got our air scoop taped in place. What we did, if you look down in there, you can see how we removed quite a bit of the cowling to allow the air to enter. And you can see how the flanges are positioned on the cowling is about 1/4 of an inch on each side, roughly. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to put some servo screws in place just to help hold this in place, and then that way, and then we'll go ahead. We'll run some epoxy and probably some silicone glue is what I'm thinking, because that'll provide a very nice seal going all the way around, and that's the key thing. We want a good tight seal so the air is able to get it to the motor and the ESC. All right, friends, more to come. All right, friends, you can see our air scoop is screwed and glued in place. One of the things you want to keep in mind is that when you go to mount this particular air scoop, put your cowling back on your plane, because the cowling, when they design it, is very tight. And what I mean by that, it's tight by the way it fits around this rear portion of the fuselage. So when you make the cut, the opening, as you can see down in here in the cowling for the air scoop, the cowling spreads. So put your cowling back on your plane, then go ahead and mount your air scoop. We went ahead to glue it in place. We decided to go with some of the silicone glue, as you can see here. And I like that because it's very strong, and what it does, it's going to help go ahead and provide a good seal going all the way around this particular air scoop so air doesn't get out, so we get as much air as possible going to the motor and the ESC. Now I'm going to go ahead and as part of this video, I'm going to put up some pictures that I found online from another gentleman who went ahead and built this exact plane, and he provides more detailed pictures of how exactly the air scoop is attached. So here are the photos. All right, friends, so there's the photos. Hope those help. I'll put a link in the description to the build that gentleman completed. Right now, we're going to go ahead and shift our focus to mounting the canard and then start looking at getting the canopy mounted as well. More to come. All right, friends, as we prepare to mount the canard, one of the nice things about this kit is that the holes for the canard for attaching it are pre-drilled both in the canard itself and in the actual fuselage. And on the opposite side of the holes for the fuselage are the blind nuts. So what we need to do, though, is we do need to drill a hole here to pass our connectors through. Now, one of the nice things about this particular kit is if you look carefully on the inside, you'll see that you have a little opening there at the very top of that former. Looks like almost like a half moon. That's where we're going to be drilling our hole through. So just keep that in mind. So we don't want to drill it through the actual former. We just want to go ahead and drill it through the opening itself in the former. All right, let's go ahead and get our canard mounted. More to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update here, you can see we've got our canard in place. Now, the instructions say to use 1-inch 6/32 bolts. Don't use them, they're too short. You need 1 1/4 or 1 1/2. I'm using 1 1/4. We were able to go ahead and drill our hole back there. You can see pretty straightforward, not difficult at all. You're going to want to add 12-inch extensions to the servo so it'll reach the receiver back in the back. You can see it back there. Now, one of the things that this comes with is this wonderful hatch, as you can see here. Okay, and of course all the hatch latches are already attached. They do put balsa on the side, which is great. It does have one little minor flaw that I've noticed, and that is when they cut the hatch, they left quite a gap. So let me go ahead and see if I can get this in place, so I can show you the gap. That's actually, you know what? Let's just leave it here, and I'll just go ahead and show you anyway. If you look on the side there, there's quite a gap between the hatch and the actual canard, and that's the same pretty much for the other side as well. You can see the gap there as well. So what's available on the market, you can find it. They call it seating tape. Superstar Products is no longer around, but I had this. Seating tape is it's just foam that's adhesive on one side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the seating tape and we're going to put it on the balsa portion of this particular hatch, and that'll provide a nice seal when the hatch is in place. So let's get that done. More to come. All right, friends, you can see we've got our seating tape in place, and we're going to go ahead. We'll put the hatch on. This should work perfectly. More to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, you can see we've got our hatch in place, and what we did is we went ahead and we were able to go ahead and add the foam. You can see right down in there, but if you look at the actual gap between the hatch and the canard, you can see the foam is in place, and it does a nice job sealing it up. Now, what we had to do too is the issue is that the hatch was sliding back and forth when it was in place, and my biggest fear is that it would come off in flight. So to alleviate that problem, not only did adding the foam underneath the hatch make a difference, but if you look right here, and if you also look right here and here, we added a couple small pieces as well of foam. That's the same seating foam, and that worked really well, and now it doesn't slide around anymore. So that's what I would strongly advise. The seating foam on the sides and the seating foam, the pieces here and in the rear, will help keep the hatch in place. All right, So that's done. We've got our canard mounted. We're going to go ahead now and shift our focus to the actual canopy itself. We need to get that painted. Now, one of the neat things about this kit, let me show you something that I just think is fantastic. You know, you've got a very complex canopy, as you can see here. Right now, we've got it in the plastic. But if you look at the actual canopy, you can see that the windows themselves are shaped, they're here long, you know, and cutting out blue tape to cover that up can be very difficult. But what they did, which was just absolutely wonderful, is they included pre-cut shapes for the actual front windshield and also side windshields as well. That way you can go ahead and cover them up. So that way you can then spray paint the portion of the canopy up in here, because in the Velocity, the top portion is spray painted. You've got your supports here in between the actual windows that are also painted as well. So let's go ahead, let's get that going, and more to come. All right, friends, as we continue our update, you're looking at the main hatch here, the bottom portion, and you'll see I had to remove the covering back in here because there was a bit of a crush injury. Looks like it might have been from shipping, so we just need to fix that. That's super simple, just some glue. One thing I'm glad I did take the covering off, because I noticed that these plywood O-rings were not glued in place, nor were the dowels that hold the actual hatch in place. And someone forgot to glue this portion in place with this particular wood. So you're going to need to cut away that covering and maybe run a little glue and then just recover it. So that's what we'll do. We'll just recover it. We'll glue everything in place and we'll recover it with some Ultra Coat. More to come.